speeders, and we're going to answer the question, should I drive the posted speed limit or should I keep up with traffic flow after I get my license? Because the question definitively for your driver's test is that you have to drive the posted speed limit. We're going to give you information about that and engage in a discussion about speeders, and speeding tonight. Stick around, that's what we're talking about. Few people are here already. Eric is here, elevator fan, tuning in from Monticello, Indiana, and Carrie is here. Hello, hello. How are you? Sorry it's been delayed this week. I had a medical procedure on Monday and I moved it to Thursday just because I've been like super out of it the last couple of days. So I do appreciate everybody's patience in moving it to Thursday. Next week we'll be back on the regular schedule and get going there. So yes, Corey is here. Brooks Wheels. Corey is the moderator, does an excellent job of putting up the videos I suggest you have a look at for more information on the questions you ask and more details for sure to help you out with all of that. Rawson is here. Hello from Ohio. And if you need to do the Ohio Maneuverability Test over at the Smart Drive Test website, we put up the new course, the Ohio Maneuverability Test, for those of you in the Buckeye to pass that part of your driver's test. It gives new drivers no end of grief. So we've put that together for you to help you out and be successful in passing your driver's test in Ohio. Speeding. Most drivers do it. It is part and parcel of social driving, and most people do 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit there in the United States and 10 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit here in Canada. Everything in our marketing world tells us that we need to speed and we need to drive a fast car and have a super fast car. And that's what most of us aspire to, because we try to emulate the uber wealthy. And of course the uber wealthy have all of the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis, Mercedes-Benz, the Audis, and I'm missing one of the German cars. That's a high-end car. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're talking about tonight and answering that question. And it is not an easy answer of what you should do to keep yourself safe on the roadways. But I can tell you the key to keeping yourself safe is space management, always having that space in front of your vehicle. Rawson, does the buggy have fog lights? No, the buggy does not have fog lights, Rawson, but you can obviously retrofit them on just about any vehicle afterwards. But many pickup trucks and SUVs now come with fog lights as an accessory. Marion is here. Hello, everyone. Got back from taking the cat to the vet. Hopefully the cat's all right, Marion. Outdoor fishing. Hello, my friend. I passed my G test last week. That is awesome. Congratulations, my friend, on passing your test there in Ontario. Your channel helped me. It truly did, and that is awesome, and so glad that we could help out. Where did you go for your first drive, my friend? Evan, people often treat speed limit signs as advisory signs. By the way, if they're faded markings, other roads, people will make risky maneuvers. Yes, they will, and this is the reason that traffic signs get replaced most of the time, so that they can be easily read and the information from them gleaned, because as we say, traffic signs are to driving what instructions are to an IKEA cabinet. Only after you get it halfway put together and something doesn't fit or something's wonky on the IKEA cabinet, then you go to the instructions and start, studying them, looking at them, going, oh, maybe what had happened? And same thing with traffic signs when people are driving, unfortunately, is what happens. Michael, haven't been on one of your lives in a moment. I see you rocking the beard. Good to see you, sir. Good to see you as well, Michael. Thank you for dropping in on the live stream. My car is getting an oil change, Rawson says. Marion, yes, she is doing fine, thank you. She won't let you cut her claws anymore, so I had to get the vet to do it because they were too long. Marion, same with the dog. I just take the dog to the groomer and spend the $6 to get the groomer to do it. I went for it in Orangeville. I went with the driving school, but your channel helped just as much. Awesome. Yes, outdoor fishing. Sometimes just going with the driving school is just as easy to go and pass your driver's test. Orangeville, great. That is awesome, my friend. So we're talking about speeding, whether you should keep up with the traffic flow. Actually, Marion asked me this question on a comment a couple of weeks ago, and I was going to make a video about it, and I thought, why don't I just do a whole live stream about it and discuss this topic more? Now, in my personal vehicle, I drive with the traffic flow. I keep up with the traffic flow when I'm driving. And it's something that I cannot advocate because of my professional liability. I can't say to you, you know, drive the traffic flow, and I would advocate that and put that out on videos and what that kind of those types of things. Because if I ever got hauled into court and somebody said, well, Smart Drive Test told me that I needed to drive the traffic flow to be safer on the roadways, I could be held liable for telling you to do that. And one of the things I'm going to talk about in the presentation is a police officer being asked the same question. Can I legally drive 5 or 10 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit? Can I legally drive 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit? They're not going to say that you can, because the key word in that question is legally. No, legally you cannot drive over the posted speed limit, because the posted speed limit on highways and roads is the maximum speed that you can drive under ideal conditions. So if conditions deteriorate, your speed should be reduced as well to deal with and drive safely under those reduced traffic conditions, i.e. construction, bad weather, heavy traffic, pedestrians along the roadway, those types of things. So no professional traffic safety person is going to give you that information. However, everything in the driving environment, everything on television in terms of automotive commercials are going to tell you that driving fast is fun. And it is. I'm not going to deny that. Love it. It's absolutely great. Chief, hi Rick, sorry my question is not related to tonight's topic regarding speed, but I want to be a driving instructor, so I'll need your support. Please link me up. Thanks in anticipation. Chief, you're most welcome. There's lots of great videos on the channel. Chief, where are you going? I mean, where do you live that you're doing your driving instructor's license? And maybe I can give you some guidance on that. Elevator, I've seen drivers drive through traffic lights at high speeds on the highway. Yes, unfortunately they do that. They run through traffic lights and disobey signs and other information on the roadway that potentially could keep them safe. Ross, and on multi-lanes, I hang out in the right lane as always. Yes. And if you are driving the posted speed limit on a highway, which is going to happen because, say, for example, that you're in the state of Montana or in the Dakotas or you're in Texas where the speed limit is 75 miles an hour, if you just want to drive 75 miles an hour because that's a high rate of speed, 75 miles an hour is 125 kilometers an hour, just hang out in the right-hand lane. Okay, Chief, you're in Ghana. All right, you're going to have to figure out who does the licensing, which authority, which government body does the licensing for driving instruction. Usually it can be the government department that's responsible for licensing. Go and talk to them and see what you need to do in order to become a driving instructor there. Pacuna, I've seen an NYPD cop drive through a red light next to me. Yes. Emergency vehicles can drive through red lights. It is part of their jobs and responsibilities, and it is a request for them, you know, requesting right of way from other traffic to be able to do that. Usually they have to have lights and sirens going when they're moving through intersections with red lights. Ross, the only time I'd be in the left lane is passing other traffic and making left turns soon. Yes. All right. So the conflict here is what's being told to us by public media, i.e. automotive, you know, car manufacturers, and trying to sell you fast cars and sell you speed and being sexy, because speed is equated with being sexy and good looking and rich and wealthy and prosperous and successful. And this is what they're selling you when they're selling you a new car. They're selling you this whole persona that goes along with being able to drive fast. And then, of course, there's the entire Hollywood set, right, where the Hollywood genre of films and fast cars. The Fast and the Furious probably is the most famous. And then, of course, you have my favorite film of all time, Bullet, with Steve McQueen with the, you know, I think it's a 67 Mustang Fastback. Somebody might be able to correct me on that. But one of the greatest car chase scenes of all time. And of course, you get these very virile, masculine men who are driving these hot, souped up cars at very high rates of speed under control. Under control. There is the key. They never show you, or they rarely show you, traffic crashes in Hollywood films. And if they do show you traffic crashes or car crashes in a Hollywood film, the actors generally climb out of the wreck, shake themselves off, and carry on with their life, right? they're very rarely injured or very rarely killed. Of course, if the main characters are killed in a movie, the movie ends. So it doesn't happen anymore. So there's a whole culture outside of traffic safety that is telling you to do something different than what traffic safety is doing. Now, lots of people will say to me, I drive the speed limit because it's safer. I obey all the road rules because it's safer. Traffic laws no more prevent crashes than criminal law prevents crime. And for those of you who've been here on the live streams for a while, you have heard me say that before. Marion, just love how that happens. Yeah, it's a little bit like, when they're in bed and they've, been intimate together and she's always covered to the neck and he's always covered to the waist kind of thing. It's kind of like that, right? It's not the way it is at all. So, okay, so we're talking about speeding in a much bigger context than just in the circles of traffic safety, just within the circles of driver training and learning how to drive, because there's a lot more going on that influences people when they drive and the way that they drive after they're getting their license. So I do apologize if this is much more abstract than most of the live streams that we talk about, where I give you step-by-step instructions on how to do something or how to pass your driver's test. This idea of speeding and keeping yourself safe is a lot more complicated than people purport. And of course, you've heard from traffic safety authorities, the police, and any other organization that has their finger remotely in the pie of traffic safety, to have a really bad analogy, is that speed is the cause of crashes. Speed is not the cause of a crash. There are all kinds of other factors that are the cause of the crash. And this is there's a number of reasons that I say this, and I have said this before, that speed is not the cause of a crash. Okay? Speed is a contributing factor to the severity of the crash, but it is not the cause of the crash. Okay? And let me explain that to you. So what happens is, as speed increases, and I'll talk about this more in the presentation, as speed increases, the energy in the vehicle increases exponentially. So the difference between 5 kilometers an hour and 25 kilometers an hour is that you now have 25 times more energy in the vehicle. So this is why they're more severe at higher rates of speed. So the reasons that I say that speed does not cause crashes is, here's something for you to think about. Twice the number of crashes happen in cities as happen on highways. So in other words, the speeds are higher on highways and freeways, but the number of crashes is less, half less. Okay, twice as many crashes in the city as there are on highways. The other piece about this, nobody points to the Autobahn and says, look at how many car crashes are happening on the Autobahn, which doesn't have a speed limit in many places, as most of you know. As well, nobody looks at Australia, which has summer all the time, has one of the most stringent, rigorous traffic safety programs in the world. Nobody points to Australia and goes, look at the number of traffic deaths in this country. They are significantly less than any other country in the world. That's not true. That's not true. Australia struggles with traffic deaths in that country because it's summertime all the time. And I've asked this question before about which season of the year has the most number of crashes. Inevitably, people will always come back to me and say, oh, it's the wintertime. The most number of crashes happen in the wintertime. The most number of crashes don't happen in the wintertime. The most number of crashes happen in June, July, August, early September. That's when the most number of crashes happen, because that's when most people are out, and that is when most people are driving too fast for conditions of the roadway. They think they're safe. Elevator fan, I drive in the left lane after passing as long as I'm not blocking. Awesome. Eric, this week another car merged into my car and sideswiped it, then did not stop. The other car hit and run. Thankfully, I'm okay, and my wife, Carrie, is okay. Glad to hear you're okay, Eric. Sideswipe crashes, yes, you're usually going to survive a sideswipe crash without injury. sideswipe crashes, unless you lose control after the fact that you hit the other car, most of the time you're going to be just fine. Damon, Dr. Arx, are you trying to emulate Santa Claus? No, Damon, not. And actually, I'm not really in love with the beard anymore, you know, now that it's coming on summertime. So I'm thinking that pretty soon the beard's going to be bye-bye, bye-bye. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, years ago, the beard was a different color than it is now. I haven't had a beard in like 10 years. And yeah, now I just old and gray. So yeah, I don't want to be Santa Claus. So we're talking about speeders, and speeding, and whether you should speed, whether you should keep up with traffic flow. And you have heard me say that keeping up with traffic flow makes you more predictable, but how fast can you drive? And as I said, I'll talk about this in the presentation. I'll show you a comment by a former police officer and what they have to say. One of the interesting pieces about speed, and as I was just talking about, that, you know, most think tanks, the organizations, the National Highway Traffic Safety Association in the United States, we have one here in Canada, TIRF, TIRF, they all say that speed is one of the leading causes of crashes. I disagree. Speed is not a contributing factor to speed. Following too close, the mismanagement of space and speed are contributing factors to traffic crashes. But this is not the reason. And the other reason that I say this is owing to the fact that the #1 crash in North America is rear end crashes. Rear end crashes happen because people are following too close, and they're failing to pay attention to what they're doing, to their driving. They're not giving themselves a buffer of space in which to be distracted. And if you think for a minute that you can drive and never be distracted, that 24/7, you know, 3,600 seconds in an hour, that you're completely 100% focused on the driving task, you're completely delusional. I'll tell you that right now, because you are going to be distracted when you're driving. There is simply too much stuff going on. There is too much stuff in the driving environment. People walking, billboards, signs, restaurants, other traffic doing goofy things when you're driving. You are going to be distracted, whether it's inside your car, whether it's something cognitively, something physically that's going to distract you, or something visually that's going to distract you when you're driving. And all this ties into speed and speeding, because you're going to get distracted. But do you have that buffer of space between you and other traffic on the roadway? As well, as many of you have some experience of driving now, you're going to figure out that the attention required for driving ebbs and flows. There comes times, especially when you're approaching intersections and whatnot, that your attention needs to be very high, because there's a lot going on at an intersection. And you say, for example, you're making a left-hand turn, there's a lot to pay attention to. You're paying attention to the traffic light, you're paying attention to the pedestrians on the cross traffic, and you're paying attention to the oncoming traffic. So your attention is locked in on making that left-hand turn safely. But when you're out on the highway on cruise control, you're, you know, very little traffic around, you've got the vehicle on cruise, and, you know, it's summertime and you got the tunes cranked up, there's very little that is requiring your attention other than holding the vehicle in the center of your lane. And if you have adaptive cruise control and lane assist, there's even less attention required on your part to keep yourself safe on the highways. So there are times when you're driving that your attention required is ebbing and flowing. So how does all of this tie into speed and speeding? Again, it's not a cause of crashes. It is a contributing factor to the severity of the crash. And we've put lots of safety features and whatnot in vehicles that are now keeping you safe and have reduced the impact of head-on crashes. We still haven't figured out how to mitigate sideswipe. We still haven't figured out how to mitigate T-bone crashes and mitigate rear-end crashes, because those are still happen at a very high occurrence. Okay. Retired, my friend, how are you? Make a video on driving in heavy rain. Yes, if we get some heavy rain, I will definitely do that for you. Corey will put the video up for you right now on driving in the rain. and keeping glass clear and those sorts of things and driving out on the highway. Retired, what is it that you're having difficulty with in terms of driving in heavy rain? Are you talking about like torrential downpours? You know, when you got people out there driving 20 miles an hour on the highway because it's so torrential when it's coming down? Is that the kind of rain that you're talking about? Damon, Dr. August, speed is something all civilian motorists should be mindful of. Speed magnifies the consequences of space management. Yes, it does. You do have to manage space, or sorry, you do have to manage speed in order to have space around your vehicle. You have to control speed to have space around your vehicle. Absolutely. Excellent point. NS, have drivers gotten worse, or is it just my perspective? NS, I don't know whether drivers have gotten worse over the years. They definitely have gotten... Complacent is not the word. It's an optimism bias. Vehicles have become more soundproof, and because vehicles have become more soundproof with better automotive technology, people are more prone to speed and more prone to allow their attention to wane when they're driving. That's what I would say. Okay, excellent. Kyle, I'm glad to see you're still teaching people. Your videos played a very large role allowing me to get my license 2 years ago. I was terrified of driving. Your videos were a blessing. Kyle, thank you so much for the kind words. So happy that we could help, my friend. That is awesome. How's the driving going? Chief, I agree perfectly with that. Speed is not only the cause of crashes, but it's a contributing factor, especially when you overspeed where you're not supposed to. It's my opinion, boss. Yes. And talking about that, speeding in places where you shouldn't, this is the reason in many in many Canadian and US states, they're reducing the posted speed limit to 20 miles an hour. The reason that they're doing that is because a pedestrian will survive a crash. Let me restate that because I'm not saying that very clearly. The likelihood of a pedestrian surviving a crash with a car increases as the speed of the vehicle gets closer to 20 miles an hour. So there's an 80% chance that the pedestrian will survive when the car is traveling at 20 miles an hour. As the car increases in speed, the closer it gets to 40 miles an hour, that becomes the inverse, and the pedestrian is 80% likely to die in that crash with a car. So this is what's going to happen. Retired, I have a trip to Florida and heavy rains are in the forecast. I will be driving on a busy highway. All right. Okay, retired. A couple of things I'll suggest to you is it's going to be muggy when you're driving to Florida in potential heavy rains. Keep the glass clean in your vehicle. First thing, okay, because then you're not going to get that refraction of light coming through the glass because of it being dirty. So, you know, keep a bottle of Windex or glass cleaner in the vehicle with some paper towel, and you can clean the inside, clean the outside. Good windshield wipers. Make sure that your defrost is working. If it does start to fog up on the inside, as you'll see in the video, I do go over this, turn your defrost on. If you can turn the air conditioning on at the same time, the air conditioning will pull the humidity out of the cabin of the vehicle. Roll down one of your windows just like a crack so there's some air coming in from outside. And windshield wipers, you know, use them on low. If you need them, turn them on high while you're driving in the heavy rain. Make sure you have your headlights on. Turn them to the on position. Don't put them on the auto position. That way your taillights are on and people can see you from the rear, okay? If you're not comfortable, you don't need to be out in the passing lane. Get in the right-hand lane when you're driving in the rain. And, you know, lots of space around your vehicle and look as far down the road as you can. Look at traffic signs, see what the road's doing when you're driving, and you're going to be great, my friend. Damon, I myself love the idea of being on an open, lightly trafficked highway on a clear sunny day at 80 miles an hour or 95 or even 100 miles an hour. Yeah, and Damon, I was driving last summer through Montana. It's 80 mile an hour speed limit. You know, it's great being out there with the speed limit at 80 miles an hour, driving in the summertime on cruise control on the interstate. There's something about forward motion that's really awesome. Elevator fan, speeding is the common cause of getting pulled over by the police. Yes, if you are doing more than 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit in the United States, you have a chance of getting pulled over by police. Now, we did have a discussion, I'll go over this again in the presentation, that radar detectors are allowed in vehicles in the United States. However, if you get pulled over with a radar detector in your vehicle, the police officer knows that you have a radar detector in your vehicle. And if you get pulled over for speeding and you have a radar detector in the United States, it's unlikely that you're going to get off with a warning, because now there's that, you've ratcheted it up a notch with the police officer, and they see you as a professional speeder when you have a hound dog, they're nicknamed hound dogs, in your car, and it's likely that you're just going to get a speeding ticket if you do have one that in your vehicle. Retired, thanks for the tips in the video, Rick. You're the best. No worries, my friend. Anytime we can help out. Awesome. Let's get over to the presentation here, and we'll get through that and give you some information about speeders, and speeding. So tonight we're talking about speed, and my contention is that speed is not the cause of crashes. Saying that speed is the cause of traffic crashes is like saying Lego is the reason that you step on it in the middle of the night when you're walking around your house. Lego is not responsible for you stepping on it on the floor because your kids were playing with it. No more than speed causes traffic crashes. It's just a matter of course. And the other reason that I said that, and I'll reiterate this, twice the number of crashes happen in cities as happen on highways. All right? However, twice the number of fatalities happen on highways because speed is a contributing factor to the severity of the crash. And everything within our marketing culture tells us that driving fast is sexy, makes us successful, makes us virile, especially men, because most of these fast cars, sports cars, driving fast, all of this is directed towards men, not so much women. However, it's coming on board, and many cars have been, car advertisements have been directed towards women, and women are on the same kind of risk scale as men are. Not so much, but it's coming, it's getting there. All right, for those of you new to Smart Drive Test, my name is Rick August. I was a truck driver in the 1990s. I hauled freight between Ontario, Canada, and the United States. Became a licensed commercial driving instructor in 1997. 2006, I graduated from the University of Melbourne with my doctorate in legal history, with a specialty in policing and traffic. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about policing and speeding and why it is, high on the radar, pardon the pun there, high on the radar of policing departments and why they police speeding to the extent that they do. While I was going to university in Melbourne, I drove buses for Greyhound, one of the regional bus lines there. 2015, I started the online YouTube channel and the online business, and it has been wildly more successful than I could have imagined. And if you want to know more about me and more about Smart Drive Test, check out the autobiography over at the Smart Drive Test website. Good stuff to have a look at. Defensive Driving for New Drivers podcast over at the Smart Drive Test website. Corey will put these links up for you in the comments there. And as well, look at chance events that could fail you on your driver's test. Yellow lights, big trucks parked on the side of the road, unloading freight, crashes, construction, all these types of things could potentially be surprises that could cause you to fail your driver's test. Have a look at those. And for people watching on the replay, I'll definitely put that down in the description for you. Have a look at those resources. And as well, I just want you to see this where somebody asked if they could legally speed 5 to 10 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit. And this was asked on Twitter to one of the former police officer who runs a channel, runs a Twitter page over there. And he responded, a viewer asked if they could legally drive, and the key word is legally here, 5 to 10 kilometers over the posted speed limit. Sean's answer, no, the speed limit is just that. The maximum speed you're legally allowed to drive. Anything over is speeding, and speeding is illegal. All right, according to black letter law. And I've talked about black letter law before. Black letter law is what is written in legislation. Now, what happens in courts, it can be something different, but legally, yes, he's absolutely right. And then, of course, there's the disclaimer, but will you actually get a ticket for going 5 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit? You could potentially. but it's not going to hold up in court. And I'll tell you why it won't hold up in court. That said, officers typically focus on drivers going much faster. That doesn't make it legal, though, and any ticket can impact your driving record and insurance. Now, I will tell you from personal experience, I have ridden in cars with police officers, and they are here in Canada, they are driving 10 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit. In the States, it's 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. And the reason they're doing that is because they know that they will not get pulled over by other police. The reason is that radar speed cameras have a tolerance of 3 miles per hour. So in other words, if the radar gun says that you're doing 100 kilometers an hour, it could be anywhere between 97 and 103 kilometers an hour. There's a 3 kilometer an hour tolerance on that technology, and they know that it has to be much higher than that for it to stand up in court. This is the reason why it's about technology, why police officers will not give you a ticket for going 10 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit or 5 miles an hour in the States. Kinetic energy, and I talked about this before. I don't think I'm on the right slide here. Bear with me. I am on the right slide. Apologies. All right, kinetic energy. I talked about as speed increases, the kinetic energy, the energy in the vehicle increases exponentially, which means that the faster you're going, the more damage there's going to be. You know, bear with me on that. So the faster you're going, the more damage is going to be. It's because the amount of energy, kinetic energy, the forward motion in the vehicle increases exponentially. So if you're doing 20 kilometers an hour, there's X amount of energy. If you double that, the amount of energy in the vehicle quadruples, 4 times the amount of energy. If you increase the speed by 5 times, say from 20 kilometers an hour to 100 kilometers an hour, there's now 25 times the amount of energy in the vehicle. And this is one of the components that we teach for air brakes and braking larger vehicles. This becomes important. The amount of speed requires exponentially more braking force to be able to get the vehicle stopped and slowed down. And as you know, in car crashes, there are 3 different crashes. There's the vehicle hitting something. There's the vehicle occupants, those people inside the vehicle coming to a stop inside the vehicle. So you hitting the steering wheel, hitting the seat belt, hitting the dashboard, going through the glass, those types of things. And then the last collision that happens is your internal organs crashing against your chest, your brain crashing against your skull, and those types of things. So those are the 3 different crashes that happen as energy increases, as speed increases in the vehicle. Definitions of speeding. And the definitions of speeding do not lend themselves easily. Going faster than the posted speed limit is the most common. This is the one that people know about. The other definitions of speeding: faster than the traffic flow. So most traffic flow, as we said, is going to be going 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit, 10 kilometers an hour, and people are driving, instead of 110 kilometers an hour, they're driving 120 kilometers an hour. Driving faster than me. Lots of people will say the person was speeding because they were going faster than me and I was doing the posted speed limit, or at least they believe and hold the conviction that they are going the posted speed limit. Faster than the conditions of the roadway will allow. So people driving too fast and crazy when it's snowing or in the rain or those types of things. And then in 2016, for the most, the National Highway Traffic Safety Association in 2016 said, and for the most of the past 2 decades, around 1/3 of all fatalities were caused by speeding drivers. Okay, 1/3. So they're claiming that 33% of crashes and fatalities were caused by drivers who were speeding. So what definition of speeding are they saying is causing traffic crashes? Because there are different definitions of speeding, okay? Speeding has been something that has been an issue for motorized traffic since its beginning. It was even an issue for policing traffic before motorized traffic, because horses and horse riders could be charged under the Fast and the Furious, charged with fast and furious driving. It's not just a movie. It actually comes from legislation, British legislation prior to the advent of the motor car. Okay? Motorized cars, however, forever changed policing and increased police powers. This is where we got on-the-spot tickets, because courts soon became backed up with traffic infractions and they couldn't deal with it anymore, so they had to increase police powers to be able to deal with the truly overwhelming amount of traffic tickets, and mostly speeding, that came into the courts. Okay, speed forever changed the the urban and rural landscape and automotive safety and driving culture. And I actually wrote an article about this, Spinning Our Wheels, which looks at the history of the 20th century and traffic safety and the different things that have been implemented to make people safer. And it really wasn't until up until the 1960s that automotive safety actually became something that automotive manufacturers could actually sell. Because before that, automotive manufacturers were like, yeah, that'll never sell. And it was actually Volvo who brought forth, the seatbelt, which was adopted from aviation, and began to put those in their vehicles, and allowed other auto manufacturers, they didn't patent it, they allowed other companies to be able to use that. And then, of course, in the early 1970s, when traffic fatalities, traffic deaths were completely out of control, that they legislated that seatbelts had to be worn. And I'm actually old enough to remember when they brought in seatbelt laws in the early 1970s, and people saying that there was no way that they were ever going to wear seatbelts in cars. I can remember my parents saying that. And I can remember my parents with the argument that, what happens if you crash into a lake or a body of water? You're not going to be able to get out of the car. Well, the piece of information that you need to know, that if you crash into a body of water and you're not wearing your seatbelt, the possibility of you still being conscious are very low. You're probably going to be knocked out because of the crash if you're not wearing your seatbelt. Whereas if you're wearing a seatbelt and you crash into a body of water, or your vehicle catches on fire, you're probably still going to be conscious that you can undo your seatbelt and actually escape the vehicle that's in the body of water, those types of things. So these were some of the things that were going on with seatbelts and seatbelt use in the early 1970s. So I talked about Australia. I talked about its very rigid and very in-your-face traffic safety program. Australia probably has one of the most rigorous and stringent traffic safety programs in the world. They have widespread use of speed cameras throughout the country, and it is unlikely that you will see anybody exceeding the posted speed limit in Australia because of the widespread use of traffic cameras there. If the speed limit is 100 kilometers an hour and you are doing 100 kilometers an hour, you are probably the fastest vehicle on the road. And 100 kilometers an hour for our friends in the United States is 62 miles an hour. So you're not going to be going very fast. As I talked about the Autobahn, nobody points a finger at the Autobahn and says, look at the high number of crashes that are happening on the Autobahn, which, as many of you know, does not have speed limits and is known for drivers doing 200 kilometers an hour plus, which is 110, 120 miles an hour. Maybe somebody can look that up for me and get the exact number for me. Okay. Here in Canada, the Trans-Canada Highway across British Columbia in the last few years, I can't say last few years because I was still working at the driving school when they increased the speed limit from 100 kilometers an hour to 120 kilometers an hour. So they increased it from 62 miles an hour to 75 miles an hour. And in the last 10 years, that speed limit has not been put back. Okay, they've not lowered the speed limit back to 100 because there were unacceptable numbers of traffic crashes caused by speed. So a few case studies there to have a think about in terms of places where the speed limit is higher. Now, where you get into trouble is with speed differentials. Speed differentials is the different speeds between different road user groups, and I would argue that this is why we have so many more numbers of crashes that happen within cities, because of the speed differentials between the different road user groups. Your vehicle and a bicycle, for example. Your vehicle and a pedestrian, for example. We have to control speed, as was said before, to manage space around our vehicles and have time in which to work. And we also have to understand the ebb and flow of attention that is required when we're driving, because as I mentioned earlier, there are some places along the roadway and when you're driving that require high amounts of driver attention, and there are other places where you can allow your attention to wane a little bit. You're not on high alert. You're not looking and observing and manipulating the controls of the vehicle at a very high level. So there are times that you can allow your attention to wane. Okay? Mapping intersections, tracking road users. The 25% of traffic fatalities in North America are vulnerable road users, pedestrians, vulnerable road users, cyclists, kids on skateboards, scooters, those types of things. So what we can think about in terms of vulnerable road users, those people that are most likely to die in a car crash, is the fact that they have a very different speed than that of cars. So there's a big speed differential. This is a contributing factor to car crashes on our roadways, is speed differentials. And whether that speed differential is the difference of speed between your vehicle and a fixed object, you know, the fixed object is obviously going 0 and whatever speed that you're going, but also the speed differential between your vehicle and an oncoming vehicle in a head-on crash is another speed differential that you have to consider when you're driving. Okay, summertime is the highest number of crashes in the world. You can look at that anywhere, and if you look at the United States, for example, the highest number of crashes happen in the American Southeast. The American Southwest, because they have summer most of the time. Arizona, Nevada, West Texas, those are the places that have the most number of crashes during the year in the United States. And it's the same thing with Australia. You can argue that they don't have winter, they don't have adverse driving conditions, so most of the time in Australia, they have a very high crash rate. And despite their very vigorous traffic safety program, it's not mitigating those traffic deaths. We talked about the culture of speeding, that it is promoted amongst automotive manufacturers and advertising. It's also advertised within Hollywood films, but it's also, interestingly enough, policing speeding doesn't work because it sets up a conflict between you and police officers, that they're policing you and you're doing something wrong, and that effect of getting a speeding ticket only lasts for a couple of months. It does not have a lasting effect. The other part of this, speed cameras, the culture of driving, every time that I was driving in the summertime and I had my GPS on my phone and there was a police officer along the roadway, somebody was reporting it, Google was reporting it, and you can look at this and people will tell you that there is a speed trap ahead. Even Google will tell you that there is a speed trap ahead. So there is a culture of not getting caught for speeding. The entire industry, outside of policing, outside of traffic safety, is telling you that you should be able to get away with speeding. And only in this day and age, if you get a speeding ticket, you're a dum-dum. You're not paying attention to technology that is available to you, that is telling you where the speed checks are along the roadways. Because I was, as you can see here in the image, I'll just make this bigger for you. If you look on Google, it will tell you where the speed checks are along your route when you're driving. So know that as well. Okay, social driving, speeding up through yellow lights. Okay, it's better to, the other part of culture of driving is that it's better to speed than to be late for an appointment. Okay, if you're trucking or you're doing some other type of work, you get paid piecemeal, you get paid per mile. Therefore, you're going to drive faster so that you can make more miles over the course of the day, and not stopping at stop signs if you're a professional driver because you want to hurry up and get there as fast as possible. Get there-itis. It's a real phenomena amongst professional drivers, and just about anybody who drives anywhere, they need to get there as quickly as possible. Okay, what can you do about this? Manage space in front of your vehicle. You can always manage that space in front of your vehicle because you need time to work. You need time to observe, predict figure out what's going on in front of your vehicle. Be proactive and predictable. And as I said, I do counsel you, not professionally, but keeping up with traffic flow allows you to be more predictable on the roadways. Stay away from other road users, stay away from other fixed objects, because if you're not near anything, it's less likely that you're going to hit something. Okay? Radar detectors. We had a conversation here, and I was telling you about this on one of the comments where somebody said that you can get yourself a radar detector, i.e. a hound dog. They're not legal in Canada. You cannot use radar detectors in Canada, but in the United States you can, right? And I was corrected by a smart driver about this. But as I said, if you get pulled over and the police officer does in fact know that you have a radar detector in your vehicle, you get pulled over, they look at you as a professional speeder, and it is not likely that you are going to get off with a warning if you have one of these in your vehicle. All right, good luck on your driver's test. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Damon, thank you for that. 125 miles per hour. Yes, it is better to be late for an appointment than to speed. Elevator fan, yes. Professionally, that's what we're going to say in terms of traffic safety, but that's not the perception within our culture. We don't want to be late for an appointment, especially, say, for example, that we're going for a job interview. If we're going for a job interview and we're late, we're going to speed to get there, to try and get there and make up time to get there on time. It's not likely. 95% of the population is not going to stay at the posted speed limit and be late for the appointment. They don't want to explain to somebody why they were late when they could simply speed and make up the time. It's even worth the risk of getting a speeding ticket because they don't want to be embarrassed showing up to an appointment late, or being, worse yet, being admonished, getting in trouble for being late. For example, you have a job interview, you show up late, now you can't have the job interview. All right? So these are the things that are going to happen. Marion, I remember my sister being in a car seat that hooked over the top of the seat in the car. Marion, yes, we didn't have car seats as kids, right? And, that's a whole new thing in the last 25 years. And, my kids, we bought car seats. The other thing, you can't resell car seats. Once, I think they have a lifespan of 5 years. Once they're 5 years old, you can't sell them anymore because they're not guaranteed anymore. I mean, people do and those types of things, but this is part and parcel of the whole traffic safety initiative that's going on in our world. Of course, I might talk about helicopter parents and those types of things, but no, I would never put my kids in a car without a car seat. Let's not misinterpret what I was saying there. So I would always use a car seat for my kids. However, plastic does not deteriorate. So that's what I'm talking about. We just throw these things into the bin, which is not environmental at all. Damon, there are several residential areas with a legal speed limit of 30 miles an hour, which I do not think is wise. I grew up in a subdivision where there was a strictly enforced 20 mile an hour speed limit. In most places, most residential areas now in the United States and in Canada are putting in speed limits of 20, 25 mile an hour speed limits. The reason for that is because pedestrians and vulnerable road users are at a much higher likelihood of surviving a crash at those speeds. Mary, no, I was quite shocked to hear that. We gave our car seats away after they outgrew them. Yeah, that's what happens, Mary, and you just have to give them away because you can't sell them because of the liability, right? But this is what not auto manufacturers, but car seat manufacturers are doing, is they put a sticker on them that they're only good for 5 years. So basically what they're doing is they're only good for one family. We can't pass them on to other people. Now, the other half of that, the other part of that with car seats, kids' car seats, is that 60-70% of them are improperly fitted into a vehicle. So they're not going to provide any safety for the child in the car seats anyway. I guess it's better that they're in a car seat, but they're not properly installed in the vehicle. NS, I drive slightly fast, managing the space in front of me. I have to brake almost daily due to a zigzagging speed that takes too many chances. I wish the police would target the aggressive speeding. Crazy. Yes. Okay, so NS, if you're braking all the time, you need to increase your following distance in front. Now, this is the other piece about it, that when I drive, I do keep up with the flow of traffic. However, one of the things that I will say is that I never compromise that space in front of my vehicle. I always have that space in front of my vehicle. I always stop in traffic one vehicle length back from the traffic in front of me. And the reason for that is I am convinced and have the professional conviction that it's not speed that causes car crashes. As I said, it's space, improper speed and space management. You got to control speed to have that space in front of your vehicle. If you have that space in front of your vehicle, you have time to observe. You have time to interpret traffic patterns and understand the actions of individual road users, and therefore you can be proactive in your driving. But I will never be right off the bumper of the vehicle in front of me. It's simply too dangerous, and you don't have time to read and respond to what's happening with traffic. So you always have to have that space in front of your vehicle. Now, one of the other things I want to show you here, let's just look at this video on this.
What you're about to see will change your mind about speeding. Two identical cars, one travelling at 60, the other at 65. A sudden change in the road ahead. Both drivers first react, and then, a moment later, they brake. And things start to get interesting. Down here, the difference is extraordinary. In the last 5 metres of braking, you wipe off half your speed. So this car is still doing 32 k's when it hits. This one also hits, but only at 5 k's. So no matter how good a driver you are, 5 k's difference up there makes 27 k's difference down here.
Picture this. You're sitting at your desk.
So this is one of the advertisements that came out of the Monash University. They have an accident investigation department that's very well known within the country. It's known all over the world. And they had this huge program, Wipe Off 5, and they're talking about, again, they're talking about the exponential increase of energy in the vehicle. However, they're negating all of the factors that go into a crash. The first thing that they're negating, and Eric and anybody else who has had a crash or an emergency situation will tell you this, you don't just hit the brakes and hold on to the brakes for dear life when you have a crash or are in an emergency situation. What happens is you hammer on the brakes, you look at the emergency situation, you release the brakes, reassess the situation, and then you apply the brakes again. Nobody just holds the brakes. Now, the other piece that is missing out of this, yes, it's a perfect example, the whole commercial about this, and other people have asked me about this, is what about steering? What about swerving, aversion? That car in the end of the lorry there is not just going to drive into the lorry. They're going to release the brakes and they're going to swerve to the right to miss the tractor trailer at the end of that course. However, the advertisement is set up to be dramatic and to show you that speeding is evil, right? The music, the tone, the authority of Professor, right, who's part of the Monash Accident Research Investigation, right? All of this goes into this, but they don't, it's a very controlled commercial that is put in place to scare people into driving the posted speed limit and getting you to believe that driving the posted speed limit and obeying all of the traffic laws is going to keep you safe, which is a false message. And this is something interesting that you need to think about when you're looking at these messages and what are these messages actually saying to you. Eric, other cars at times cut me off even when I leave space in front of my vehicle. Yeah, but when you leave space, Eric, they're not there for very long, are they? Because they're usually going faster than you, and then they just take off and go somewhere else. Marion, I think I would stand on my brakes and hold on for dear life if I had an emergency in front of me. Marion, you're not going to. It's just not part of our reaction as a human being. They've done all kinds of studies to show that we apply the brakes, we look, we reassess, we let off the brakes, and then we steer. Because the other piece of it is that you have to, somehow you're going to avert, and you have to realize that in order to steer out of an emergency situation, you need to have space. And in order to do an emergency maneuver, most of the time it's only like an eighth of a turn of the steering wheel. It's like 4 to 6 inches of movement of the steering wheel will change enough direction of your vehicle that you will avoid hitting something. You're not just going to put the brakes on and hold on for dear life and hope on a wing and a prayer that you get stopped in time. It's just not the way that our emergency system is in place. We're not going to freeze when we're driving a car if you have any bit of experience at all. Here's another one. I'll show you one more. And this one is much more graphic. I will warn you that this one the first time you see it, it's a bit awful. But also let you in on a secret that it's actually a dummy in the commercial.
In this TAC commercial, you won't see an accident. It's not an accident that she'll never finish school, or have children, or hold a job. It's not an accident that he couldn't stop in time. It's not an accident because he was over the speed limit.
How fast do you think you were travelling?
I don't know.
At even 5 Ks or so over,
Very good.
you're breaking the law and responsible for the damage you cause to others.
So that's a lot more graphic in terms of
Many
commercials.
Canadians are facing housing challenges. Saving for a down...
Sorry about that. So that one is a lot more graphic in terms of Australia, and it is in keeping with the tenor of their traffic safety program. It's very in your face, it's violent, and it's graphic, and it's there to scare the public driving sector. And, take it with a grain of salt because, it is awful, but, and this is the reason that we're reducing speed limits within residential areas to 20-25 miles an hour, is that most of these people, these cyclists, kids, and those types of things are going to survive a car crash with a car if it's less, because, they're vulnerable road users. NS, yes, very emotionally driven. It's a child. We want to protect children. We want to see them grow up. We don't want to, no parent should bury a child, because it's probably one of the most terrible things that ever happens. So this is what's going on. And this is why, all of our parks, all of our school grounds have fences around them, because we don't want kids running out into the roadway and whatnot. In Chilliwack, where a 3-year-old rode his bike out into the path of an oncoming pickup truck. Yeah, that's, and those kinds of things are just absolutely awful and terrible, right? But again, it's about space management. It's about mapping intersections, tracking road users at the intersections, being on high alert when you are in a residential area and knowing, right? But the unfortunate part about all of this is that we've terrified people to the point where we don't cycle anymore because it's simply too dangerous, and kids don't ride their bikes anymore. Very few of them walk to school. Most of them are driven because it's potentially safer. And now we're getting into an entirely different aspect of traffic safety and what's going on in our world. So that is a very kind of overview, you know, of speeders and speeding, and talking about speed and whether you should obey the posted speed limit. And from a legal standpoint, it is the maximum speed limit that you can drive under ideal conditions. Now, I can't give you any information, but I am convinced that it's not speed that causes crashes. That's the one thing that you can take away from this. Speed is a contributing factor to crashes. And the faster you drive, the more energy is in your vehicle. And that's why the higher the speed, the more likely that there's going to be fatalities, because there's more energies in the vehicles and there's just no safety buffers, right? But manage that space around your vehicle, observe traffic, map intersections, track road users, and know that other road users are going to be predictable, particularly at intersections. So speeders and speeding, that's what we're talking about tonight. I don't know if I answered your question, Marion. I tried as best I could. You know, whether you should drive the posted speed limit or whether you should keep up with traffic flow, that's a personal decision, because, you know, legally, I can't tell you what you need to do. You need to do, you know, be the captain of your own ship, so to speak, and keep yourself safe when you're driving. Do manage space around your vehicle, map and track intersections, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. Bye now.